Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted a calmer, more peaceful, happier mind, then do we have the Blue Mind Show for you. Today I'll be talking with the Keeper of the Sea, Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, a visionary entrepreneurial scientist, renowned marine biologist, voracious earth and idea explorer, wild water advocate, the best-selling author of one of my favorite all-time must-read books and upcoming documentaries, Blue Mind. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about the surprising science that shows how being near, in, or on, or underwater can make you happier, healthier, more connected, and better at what you do. That, plus we'll talk about snorkeling Bowman Pond, scuba diving in Indiana's quarries, sea turtle-shaped rings, the power of Chagall Blue, where in the world is the slow coast, and what in the world Pop-Tarts, canoes, and Tchaikovsky has to do with anything. So welcome back to the show, Jay. Are you ready to shine?
Yes, of course. And it's really good to be back, and it's really good to see you. And thank you for inviting me to talk about water with you and give some updates to folks who may remember the last time we spoke and that poignant conversation that we had a few years ago.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm curious, well, maybe you can tell us both where we were most recently and before we dive into, okay, actually, I should go to your history. Let's get that underway and then let's arc forward here. How'd you fall in love with the ocean?
I think very similarly to everybody who loves the water. As a kid, I would not get out of the water. It was my happy place. Under the water, swimming in the water, playing alone with friends, the pruny fingers.
Oh yeah.
All day. Mom saying, "Get out! You got to get out! 5 more minutes! Until late into the night." Whether it was a pool, a lake, a river, an ocean, I realized at a very young age that I felt my best in the water, and when I heard that there was this job that you could potentially have as an adult, called a marine biologist, that would be a cover, I guess you could say, for spending as much time as possible near or in the water, I said, well, that's for me. I think that's what I want to do. I also love animals. I love turtles in particular. So it just kind of came together that feeling like the best version of myself while near or in water, and a love of turtles. Well, of course, you become a turtle biologist and you spend your time chasing turtles in the water. So that's kind of the quick version of it. But like a lot of people, I fell in love with that feeling that I now call Blue Mind, but I didn't have a name for it, and I couldn't really describe it. Other than I liked it and I needed it, and so that's the jumping forward to, as a scientist, trying my best to explain that feeling that has really been the backbone in many ways of how I have lived my life, and I know same for you. Many of us, right, can look to the water as a theme that has, at least in making some big decisions, been an important component. Where to live, how to live, where to vacation, where to spend your money, what to do with your time. Water is often the answer to those questions, and so that's kind of what I've been exploring the last decade, is why water, I guess you could say.
I can remember not my early days, but I guess my early cycling days. I would cycle around New England, just north of Boston. My typical rides were up and down the coast, right on the ocean. But then I would also go what I call inland a little bit, and there was a creek that went under the road, under the road, like a little bridge. And I would go into this creek and swim down. There'd be a hole, and I could get down to where there was I think you call it a thermocline. And I would drop down and sink like a stone and then just sit on the bottom in this colder water where it was very still. And I didn't know it was this term, Blue Mind, but it was like sitting in pure liquid bliss.
Exactly. No, that's Blue Mind in a nutshell right there. And you touched on a couple of things. passing over water on a small bridge or a large bridge. We've all had that experience, and a well-designed bridge gives you at least visual access to the water and gets you safely across it. And then, exercise, when we exercise and we stress our bodies and our minds through physical exertion, the contrast of getting in a restful, restorative place in the water, in the cool water, the red mind to blue mind, and elite athletes do exactly what you described as part of their training now. Many did it intuitively, instinctively, as you did, but now it's actually part of training for elite professional athletes to get hot, get red mind, and then get cold and get neck deep in very cold water as a way to restore and recover their bodies and their minds. So just that anecdote right there is just so full of blue mind themes, and that's really the conversation. It's a reminder of things you already know, that you already do, that have already occurred throughout your life, but you didn't have a name for it, and because you didn't have a name, you may not have paid as close attention to their importance. As tends to happen when something isn't named, it is often undervalued. And when we give it a name, that gives us a handle to describe, talk about it, and add value, add perceived value to it. And that's really been this Blue Mind exercise in a nutshell, is naming something that we all have known, that has existed for all of human history, and maybe adding value to this thing that was previously unnamed, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. In fact, when you mentioned the elite athletes, and you mentioned going red mind, blue mind, which we'll talk more about in a minute, and cold water, and there's like a Visa commercial now with the Olympics of one of our skiers soaking in an ice tub bath. And you talk about this being an unnamed thing for millennia. Well, it's a mammalian response that dates back to our time back in the water, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it's a physiological, natural response called the mammalian dive reflex that automatically shifts us into what I call blue mind, even before we touch the water, in anticipation of getting in that water. So if I say to you and anybody who's listening, imagine a cold body of water of your choice. Could be an ice bath, could be that creek, could be a lake, could be an icy cold ocean. Imagine it. Now, imagine yourself stepping up to it and preparing to get in it. Now imagine getting into it quickly or slowly. Now imagine yourself in that ice water up to your chin. Just thinking about it, and if you imagine it well, and we have these incredible imaginations, that shifts your internal chemistry, that shifts your physiology, it shifts your state of mind, it changes your breathing. Just the mere suggestion of this cold body of water. Now, if we shift it a little bit and I say it's a warm body of water, it's evening, and it's the water and your body are the exact same temperature. It's just seamless and silky and calm and inviting and shallow and safe. And you're just going to get in there and you're just going to float and lose track of where your body and where the water and the air begin and end. Well, that's a different experience, and that puts you in a different state of mind. Both very healthy, both necessary, I would say, needed ingredients in our lives, in our busy, red-minded lives. And that's the encouragement that we're trying to spread, is just to reconnect with your water, wherever it is, whatever the name of your water is. You could call it bathtub, or you could call it Mill Creek, you could call it Pacific Ocean, you could call it the Atlantic Ocean surrounding your home. It could be the back bay. It could be a lagoon. It could be a farm pond. But to reconnect with it and get the most out of it, because I think when you do that, you will give the most back to it, which is my end game as a marine scientist and conservation biologist. I have an agenda, which is restoration and protection of these waterways around the world. So that's definitely a component here.
What would you call your mission?
My mission is to help people reconnect with water, but all people. I would like every single person to understand their blue mind. Not a list of facts or scary ideas or worries, but I would like everybody to understand their own blue mind through the lens of their waterway. And I think in doing so, we will live healthier lives. We will be more creative and productive. We will be more connected to each other. And we will care more about our water in a way that makes us unstoppable advocates for that water. When we fall in love with it, when we know that that water is a source of romance and creativity and peace of mind, relaxation, connection. It's a place to grieve and mourn. It's a place to create new ideas. It's in my life. It's been a backdrop to my most romantic days and nights.
How did you propose to your wife?
Yes, I proposed to my wife underwater. I surprised her underwater along the coast of Baja, and I slipped a sea turtle ring on her finger. And then when we came up to the surface, I proposed, and then we got married by the water in Big Sur. And she probably will kill me for saying this, but our children were most likely conceived near the water as well. We vacation with our kids by the water. Mm-hmm. And so, all of the important moments of our lives have been one way or another intimately connected with water. In joy and grief and in beginnings and endings. There's been a water theme. And I, as a marine biologist and conservation scientist, we were not told to talk about that kind of thing.
So let me switch gears to a crazy question that came up that I had no plans at all asking on air. And you had mentioned romance. I never thought to ask this question, but why are there so many mermaid stories?
Yeah, I think mermaids capture a whole bunch of things and bring them together. Let's just for the time being, just say that mermaids are not real, which in fact, that may be controversial. But the idea of a mermaid brings together so many evocative and provocative themes that have been part of the human maritime relationship. Otherworldly beings and these sort of mash up creatures that are part this and part that. There are many of those throughout history. The longing and the romance of the sea. When you're at sea, sexless, loveless, where your romantic life is, let's just say, suffering. The imagination can run wild, and but the idea of a part fish, part human being is appealing on a lot of levels, and the mermaid theme has really taken off lately. I think satisfying some need clearly, but I think it works because these mermaid interactions are so joyful because of the water. It's if you had a half snake, half woman, man being just on land, whatever that would be called, a Medusa-like, but reverse, like with the Medusa, with the snake part from the waist down, and that doesn't work for me. It's kind of it's creepy, or it's the land. What's the land-based version of a mermaid? It just
Yeah.
doesn't appeal. But something about it's the water, right? It's the water component. Um, there's a great scene, and this is somewhat related, in the film From Here to Eternity, where the two protagonists are on a beach in their swimwear, rolling around in the surf, kind of getting it on. And this is an old film, so that was very scandalous. And I often in my lectures show a photograph, like an iconic black and white photograph from that film, From Here to Eternity. And I say, imagine the same scene, but remove the water. So there you have two attractive actors rolling around in the dirt in their underwear, essentially. And it doesn't work. It just does not make sense. But you bring the water back into the scene, and it makes perfect sense. So there's something about the water context that allows for intimacy and romance in a way that air and soil are not doing. And so something really sexual and sensuous and romantic about a water surroundings, which is why it's almost cliche to say a honeymoon by the ocean, right? It's almost, in a way, it's a requirement to have water involved in your honeymoon in some way. It's fascinating to ponder that.
What's it doing to the brain? So what is red brain? Oh heck, I can't resist. Hold on, before we go there. So I lived on Maui for years, and so I know some of the whisperings out there. You saying that there are no mermaids may be controversial. Can you go there for just a brief second?
There people love mermaids, and you know the desire to say that there are mermaids, real life mermaids out in the ocean, is very strong. And you know, I'm a scientist, so I'm into evidence, and I love the poetry and the beauty of the mermaid idea. So I'm not in the business of offending mermaids, so I apologize if I have. I love mermaids, for the record, and mermen for that matter. I think mermen are excellent. So
what is the male equivalent to a maid? Well, now that's
merman,
sexist to begin with. Just that, why do the mer women have to be maids?
mer people, mermen and women, mermaids, and yeah, I don't know, mer gents.
We love all mers out there.
All of them.
All right. So let's we're
Where were we?
we're gonna hold the mers, and we're going to red brain. And I was concerned about wearing the red shirt, which contrasted well with the blue azure water behind me, because I'm like, I don't want to elicit a red brain response.
Yeah, but you also don't want to fade in to the ocean either. So it's a good choice. So what I refer to as red mind and blue mind, and there's also gray mind. And red mind is necessary to live as a human, as any kind of being, animal on our planet. So red mind is the mode that we're in when we're in. It can be fight or flight response. It can be active mental processing. It could be cranking through a puzzle. It's a very high energy mode that requires acute attention and often raises your heart rate. You burns a lot of glucose. It's necessary. It's an important part. It's how we got to the moon. We competed. We were strivers. We work hard. We wanted to be first. It's how we escape the lion. We run. We feel fear. We have a response, and without really doing a lot of thinking and dreaming and not a lot of creativity. You just haul. That's red mind. Necessary. It's a necessary part of who we are. It's allowed us to survive. And if it's all we have, it will break us down. Mm-hmm. And increasingly, through our interconnectedness, through the media, we're in red mind mode more and more of the day. You get news from all over the world, every bad thing that has happened. If you're monitoring it, if you've got cable news on, if you've got a news feed on your smartphone, you will. And if you're empathetic, you will be stimulated and concerned about fires and earthquakes and shootings and stock markets and tweets by leaders, and it just never-ending flow of things that will stimulate you into at least a mild fight or flight response. Mm-hmm. That's not so good for us. That takes up our bandwidth, and it burns us out. It's bad at the cellular level. It's bad even at the DNA level. It's bad for your relationships. It's bad for your community. If that's all you have, if you are in red mind mode all the time, red mind mode all the time will eventually lead you into gray mind, which is the numbed out, indifferent, just mildly or severely depressed, just disconnected and blah. So red mind is useful. If it's all you have, it leads to gray mind. Gray mind is useless. And blue mind can rescue us from all that red mind. So blue mind is now where you step back, you take this thing called a smartphone and you use the off button.
I thought you were going to say throw it into the water.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to the ocean. You turn it off, you stick it in the drawer, you forget it even exists. You stand up, you walk outside, you cover the distance that you need to cover to get yourself to the edge of the water. And at the very least, you just stand there and listen, or sit and listen. Or you get in the water and you swim or float or boat on it, or you dive beneath the surface. And your mind goes into a different mode. I call it blue mind. And it's visually, the field of view is simplified. Auditorily, it's simplified. You're not processing language. You're not processing images. There are no screens. And then if you're in the water floating, somatically, your world is simplified. So your brain is no longer coordinating 200 muscles to hold you right there in that chair. It's getting a break from that, and you're floating. So gravity is not an issue. Screens are not an issue. Language processing, thinking about what to say, as relaxing as it is to be speaking with you, especially with that turtle behind you, it's taking a lot of bandwidth to do this. If we are listening to each other, we're responding, we're sitting in these chairs, we've got even leaf blowers going on. You are handling the technical side of things. There's a lot going on right here.
I'm sitting on a teeter stool too.
Yeah, right, exactly. Subconsciously, your brain is doing that work, right, to balance you. Mm-hmm. That's not nothing. It's something. And so you really notice the gain in bandwidth when you get it all back. And you get it all back when you're in an ultimate blue mind state, which would be a float spa or a warm night ocean that you're floating on your back in carelessly. That's blue mind. And there are degrees of blue mind. It could be anywhere from a shower in the morning, a bath in your home, to the more extreme versions, or maybe a fountain that you plug in. It's on the corner of your desk throughout your workday. You mentioned leaving the door open to listen to the sound of water. For some people, it might be a virtual experience, a sound app, or a VR experience, or a piece of art on the wall that just you look at it and it reminds you of that place that you have been and visited, that you long to go back to. That gives just a little moment of blue mind.
I used to have, and I was just looking it up on the computer to see if it's still for sale. I think it was Homopedics Enviroscape, a rainmaker that I used to keep in the kitchen that had water sounds, but it also had a little stream of water, and you could adjust the speed of the drops that came out so that you would hear actual water falling over stone, so it sounded like it was raining in your house.
Wow, that's cool.
So soothing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's so simple and it's so soothing, and it's some people would call it a life hack.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do something simple that will just give you benefit, that's one of them. There's actually a company here near where I live. They're based in Santa Cruz. They're called Plantronics.
Mm-hmm.
They make headsets, and they make aviation headsets, but they also make office, consumer electronics headsets, speaker phones, and such. And they did research, and they found that one of the number one sources of stress in the workplace is sound, so noise, sounds that you are distracted by collectively in the workplace, especially with the new office plans where the walls are removed and it's the open office plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one source of that sound is the human voice. So the number one source of stress in the workplace are the voices of fellow workers, talking about things that are irrelevant to the task that you have at hand. And so they wanted to crack the code on that. And so they tried different masking sounds. So they use white noise, they use semi-structured white noise, which is called variously pink and brown noise. And what they found is the sound of water masked human voice, let's call it noise, best. White noise masked it, but it stressed us out in a different way. But the sound of water worked best. But the problem was when they pumped the sound of water through all the speakers in the office, it was kind of weird. Like, why is there water sound coming out of the ceiling? That's not good. That must be bad. Why is there a creak in the ceiling? Why is it raining in the ceiling in my office building? So what they found was if they linked the sound to a visual, as you just described, so if the sound of the water began with the sound of the fountain in the lobby, even though the sound followed the people working in the office to building 2, 3rd floor, far away from the original source of the sound, as long as there was a visual cue that matched that sound, it tricks the brain into being okay with that sound. And so what they've literally patented is the scaled up version of what you're describing, a scaled up version that is meant to be installed maybe on each floor of an office building, a water wall with a recording of the sound that is shared throughout the entire office through a series of speakers. And they found that it works. It masks the distracting human voices, and it boosts creativity and productivity. Pretty amazing. And it's a natural life hack, if you will, using some technology and some insight. But it's an application of Blue Mind to the workplace. And no, you can't move everybody's desk to the beach. That's not going to happen. And no, you can't have frequent vacations for your entire staff to the ocean. But you can bring some of these elements into the built environment, the workplace, the home.
We have a program that goes live tomorrow, which is on automatic writing. It's a way to kind of journal and get in touch with your inner wisdom, your inner guidance. And I geek out on something that you've probably geeked out with in the past, which is brainwave entrainment music. And so I've made a whole series of brainwave entrainment music for that with a water theme to it. Have the creak, have the waves, and then you have a binaural beat or an isochronic tone, but getting that baseline of water. And most of them are for helping people drop down and get their intuition. Others are even for high level of focus. But when you put that water at the baseline, it changes everything.
Right. And it changes everything because first and foremost, we need water before everything else. I mean, obviously we need to breathe. So It's just assumed that you can breathe. You need water. You will not make it through 4 days. Definitely won't make it through a week without water. Like you're toast. You can go a month fasting. You can go a long time without shelter. You can go a lifetime without love. It's not fun. But you can't get through a week without water. So our animal brains, our nervous system is fine-tuned to respond to anything that suggests there's water available. The sound, the reflection, sparkly things. Like the original sparkly thing is water. And so we love sparkly things. We love sparkly things partly because it is the signature, it is the calling card of water, light bouncing off of wavelets, sparkling. It's the original mirror. It's the original place. It's a reflection. It's so our brains are. You turn towards it. You're attracted to it. It gives you an emotional response that says, yes, turn this way, move this way, position yourself here for wellness, for survival. And that's even beyond humans. This is not a water company marketing campaign that sort of came up recently. This is not a Nestea commercial or a Corona ad. This is deep evolutionary basis of who we are as animals. If you can't find water, if you can't respond to water's signal positively, have an emotional reaction that leads you to move in the right direction, you're dead, essentially. So that is the basis of Blue Mind, is this very natural response to all signals that we get emanating from a source of water. Now, that's been repackaged and reused in a lot of ways, sometimes manipulative, sometimes to sell you a Club Med package or whatever, or iced tea for that matter. But at the base of it is that deep primal need for some water.
Yeah. I was a few weeks ago in Delray Beach visiting my folks down there in Florida. And it was my first time got there, and I admit to being prone to emotion around the earth. And so I get out of the airport, West Palm Beach Airport, and I'm almost in tears heading back to their place with the song in my head, "They paved paradise and put in a parking lot," just going over and over again. Then a couple of days later, and I went in search of what I call my land. And my land always has water associated. I want to be connected to where I am, and that's earth and water. And I ended up in this oasis just northwest of Delray Beach, and it had a half a mile boardwalk on this nature preserve. The amount of wildlife that had stuffed itself onto the trees above and around the water, and then at sunset, watching giant flocks like squadrons of birds circling and coming in to be by the water was astounding.
Yeah, and the parallel between those animals and the first part of the story, the humans who have flocked to be by the water and put in their condos and parking lots and everything else, the irony of that is interesting. We're pulled towards the water, but then we kind of wreck the place in the process. But fortunately, there are still people fighting for those patches, some large, some small, of wild space, and that we have a little bit of access to those via a walkway or a trail, to have those wild experiences. The favorite part of my life, just like you. I'm pulled to those wild places, and I support everyone in every organization that is aligned to maintain and expand those wild places, so that as we continue to put up our parking lots, those places are spared. And in fact, we may remove some parking lots along the way and restore them to their wild states. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yes.
What was really cool about it is so it's an older population around that area, and my parents are in a semi-retirement community as well there, and I've been watching my dad's cognitive function slowly going down little by little. We've had on Dr. Michael Merzenich recently, and we've got him doing his Brain HQ software to see if we can get my dad's brain tuned back up, neuroplasticity. But getting him out, getting my mom out, and then seeing everyone else on this boardwalk around the water, I swear I could hear the synapses firing as their brains are going pop, 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 and they're literally coming back to life by being by the water.
It's interesting you mentioned Mike Merzenich, and he is the pioneer of
He's awesome.
neuroplasticity, and he's an amazing man. And he gave the closing keynote at our first Blue Mind Summit 8 years ago at the California Academy of Sciences. And I invited him to do that. And I said, the invitation was, Mike, will you give the closing remarks, say whatever you like, take as long as you need. But I ask that you sit in the front row for the whole day, mm-hmm. and then put it all together for us. And he said, you'll appreciate this. He said, I think you think I'm smarter than I am. And I said, no, I don't. That was my answer. He's as smart as we think he is. Indeed, he's brilliant and such a good communicator. And what he said was, one of the things he said was, our brains are prone to become addicted. Just that naturally, a variety of substances and activities that we can glom onto and get in these loops, these bad habits. Oftentimes, those are bad addictions. But that propensity to become addicted can be harnessed as a force for good. And I was just like, wow, what a concept. What if you became addicted to nature walks? What if you became addicted to beach cleanups? What if you became addicted to helping people because you get a dopamine rush from those activities? Wow, what a world-changing concept to flip the word addiction on its head and make it a force for good, because it is part of our sort of our natural tendency. It's just one of the great insights that Mike had. And so I think first and foremost, if you are looking for ways to improve your neuroplasticity, go outside, right? Just get up. Don't strap something on your head. First, if you can. Now, if you can't, then there are other virtual options and the software, the apps, the activities that are interior, inside activities. But even if it's a snowy day, put on your snow boots, and I guarantee it's going to be good for your brain to figure that. Go for a hike in the snow.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, on the boardwalk that you described, and the trees and the birds and the who knows what else of unexpected and moments of awe and wonder and beauty. You described just hearing, the neurological activity. That's the way it is. It really, things start to really pop. And the best parallel is to music. Music and water, nature, do this for us. Music is so diverse and so rich and so emotional, especially live music performed by a group of fellow humans. But sometimes it can work with a bud in your ear and an MP3, but it really, really, really works when it's in person, when it's live, the real thing, an outdoor concert, a drum circle. That's magic, truly. And neurologically, the research is in. Like it synchronizes us and it stimulates us and it expands our minds and it leads to creativity, and leads to this neuroplasticity, doing things together in unison, in synchrony, with rhythm. Sounds a lot like swimming and surfing and boating and rowing, uh, and music. It's all these two realms are. I just find so much overlap between the neuroscience conversation, the psychology conversation with music, as well as with water. So I'm glad you brought up Mike Merzenich, because he's one of my heroes.
He's one of my heroes, a dear friend, and to me, his favorite line, whenever I want to poke him and prod him and say, what do you say to people who say they can't? And I don't even have to, whatever I'm going to finish for that sentence, he always goes, Michael, nothing could be further than the truth.
That's right.
And I'm like, woohoo!
Yeah. And he has such authority. That's the other part of listening to Dr. Merzenich, is when he says things, he's got there's so much knowledge and wisdom behind his voice. Mm-hmm. You kind of say yes, sir. It's kind of the other person who's been very influential to my Blue Mind work is Dr. Oliver Sacks, who's the late great neurologist, and he wrote a book called Musicophilia, which is about your brain on music. Beautiful book, highly recommend it. Was a water lover and a music lover for his entire life. Said he got his best ideas, and he was full of brilliant ideas. He said he got his best ideas in the water while swimming. He had to capture them quickly, so he always kept a yellow legal pad nearby the lake or the pool or wherever he was swimming, so he could jot things down. And I really wanted him to write the book Blue Mind. Really wanted him to write it, and I wanted to read it and love the book, and then use it. And when I asked him, I basically pitched it to him, he said, "That's a fine idea. You do it." And it was probably the most powerful 3 words I'd ever had directed at me in an academic or intellectual context. You do it. From Oliver Sacks, in his voice, with the wisdom and the knowledge behind it. That changed the next 5 years of my life. I had to do it, which was a big disruption. I wanted to read the book, not write it, and was able to finish it and get him a copy before he passed away. And it was just a great man and inspiration to live, an outsized, joyful life, full of passionate pursuits and intellectual endeavors, as well as service. Live such a service-filled life, and so 2 great men, Mike Merzenich and Oliver Sacks, that we're thinking about here.
It sounds like you're living a similar kind of life.
And I hope to. I hope that that's maybe what it says on the rock. He gave a lot. That's what I took from my dad. And we last spoke shortly after my adoptive father had passed away. He died on Earth Day last year, and what he taught us was, this is a good life. You're born, you give everything you have and can, and then you die. That's a good life. Simple. And he was such a big giver in every way. And I learned about it at his memorial. People just came out of the woodwork from all over the world who had benefited through knowing him in different ways, as a mentor and as a sponsor, and from boys and girls clubs to business mentorship to just kindness, daily kindness. And that's it. That's my mantra. Give until it hurts, and then double down. Give a little more.
Woohoo! I think when you give until it hurts, it doesn't hurt anymore.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes a hurt may be like the balance in your bank account, or maybe
no, that can hurt.
Energy, or your energy level, or a sinus infection. But you get over those things, and then you don't back off. You move forward, and that's it. To connected to Blue Mind, that's our goal is literally, I would like to give as much as I can so that as close to everyone understands this conversation, has access to their Blue Mind, whatever that means for them.
So you were given the words, you do it, and you have your latest You Do It. We might as well segue to your documentary here.
Yes.
You've got another You Do It in the works.
Yeah. Yeah. So I, it's humbling. You write a book and you think, wow, this is great. And I believe in what I wrote. And then, a small group of people reads your book, and most people will never read a 300-page nonfiction book full of neuroscience. It's just a fact. However,
they're missing out. They're missing out, Jay.
Yeah. That's just a fact, though. My cause is not literacy, and my cause is not books. Although I really love books. My cause is water. So you meet them where they live. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? That means visual digital media. So a version of the book that can be consumed by non-readers and readers alike. So people who want a visual supplementary piece that backs up the book, or people who won't ever pick the book up. And so documentary is typically what those are called. But we're kind of unpacking and deconstructing the traditional documentary film so that it meets the needs of the evolving, quick-changing digital media landscape. So we need 1-minute versions of it that are compelling and make people want to watch the next 1 minute. So if a 60-minute documentary can be parsed out as also 60 1-minute documentaries that are bite-sized and can be popped in like Cheetos. I don't know what you would call them. Maybe not Cheetos, but
eye
kale
candy.
chips.
Oh,
chips.
Oh, yes.
So that idea is like meet people where they are. I'm a dad. I have a 16-year-old and 13-year-old daughters. I see how they consume media and what is good and what is not so good and what is disrupting their brain and what is just fine. So we're thinking through that, to not make a documentary that sits side by side, dusty on a shelf with the book, but a living piece of work, a piece of artwork, I guess you could call it, that communicates and compels people to really get in the water, or to be reminded throughout their lives. So the framework of the film will probably follow the framework of my next book, which is what I call the 7 ages of water, which begins with birth and ends with death and follows through a human life cycle. And it's a nice backbone. It's always good to have a clear, strong backbone.
Yeah.
And that is I like it a lot. And the film and the book take the viewer, the reader, on this journey through a human life cycle, and how our relationship with water changes as we grow from birth, as children, as young lovers and fighters, as middle-aged sort of decision makers and responsible adults. And then later, as our bodies start to weaken and gravity feels heavy, we go to the water therapeutically. And of course, at the end, in death, back to the water, to let go, to reconcile, also to grieve and mourn and celebrate, just as we did at the beginning with the water. So that's the story arc, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. Water is the protagonist. I'm also on a mission. So I thought the film Moonlight, the Academy Award-winning film Moonlight, I thought water should have gotten Best Supporting Actress. Cool. Academy Award, but she didn't. And this year, I think water should get the Best Supporting Actress, at least a nomination, for The Shape of Water, another film that's about to win a whole bunch of Academy Awards. So I'm on a quest to get an Academy Award for Water as Best Supporting Actress one way or another. So maybe we can accomplish that through the Blue Mind documentary, is to have Water nominated for an Academy Award. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, there's another. I got 3 woohoos so far. I'm doing well.
I love it. We forget that we spent our first 9 months swimming in water. We are water. We are walking, talking expressions of water. The last scientific thing I think I want to cover is I'm wondering if you know what the latest science is, because it's all a buzzword today. Telomeres. Telomeres in water.
Yeah. So I think that's a fascinating place for exploration. I think there's as you say, I mean, water is the matrix. So whether we're talking about telomeres, we're talking about our genetics, whether we're talking about the very origins of life, conception at the cellular level. Each of our cells is mostly water. So the role of water in our genetic health, in our neurological health, is at the most basic levels is critical. The quality of the water that we consume, the quantities of it, its availability, its ability to reduce our stress, thereby supporting our genetic integrity, our cellular integrity, our emotional integrity. All of that is real, and it's under-taught, undervalued, under-researched, but that's beginning to change. So, and that's not necessarily a direct answer, but it's maybe a mandate or a hope that these concepts will be taught as part of a curriculum for K through 12 students, that we will learn as kids how important water is, not only to our physical health, our genetic integrity, but also our emotional health, which segues into the things that are going on in our country and around the world this past year. A lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of divisiveness, episodic examples of violence related to that anxiety and stress, no doubt. And whenever I hear the latest report of tragedy or red-minded outburst or scandal, I wonder what role water could have played in alleviating that or avoiding it, and what role water should play moving forward, not always looking backwards, for survivors, for the mourning and the grieving, for the parents of children who are gone. I just want to remind people, for our first responders who carry so much of the burden in so many ways, that to be resilient, remember your water. Go there. There's not a prescription. There's not a one way to do it, but go there. Don't forget to take your grief, to take your anxiety, to take a break, and get your butt to the water. Bring somebody with you. Maybe bring somebody that you know also needs it. We all know who those people are in our lives. And maybe that will help avoid the next outburst, the next argument, the next tragic conflict. And again, I worry about sounding like it's a silver bullet, sort of Pollyanna-ish, naive statement about water. But really, it's merely another tool for our toolbox to go along with many others. A reminder, that wherever you are, there's probably some water that you are underutilizing.
It's fascinating. Jessica and I have been drawn. I haven't watched the Olympics in years, but we've been drawn to watch the Olympics this time. And it just occurred to me as you're talking, um, it's a celebration of water.
It is. Yeah. I was thinking about that yesterday too. Probably maybe the same time you were. Um, that the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics there's so much water. Like the most people love to watch swimming, and it's just people going back and forth. But it's the water, right? It's the boating races. Now surfing is becoming Olympic sport, and then all of the ice sports. That's water. There's a fluidity, whether they're shooting down the hill fast, slaloming, or figure skating. There's a fluidity to it that is a joy to watch. And so, yeah, it's not. I mean, there are plenty of sports that don't involve water explicitly, but most of the winter sports sure do.
Yeah. How do we, as we begin to wind this down, it's kind of a two-part question. How do we help the water? And I'm almost afraid to ask, what can you tell us about water bottles?
Yeah. So I'll start with water bottles. There are a lot of water bottles available to each of us. The kind that are made of plastic and that are meant to be single use, and then the ones that are reusable. And it seems like every day there's a shiny new water bottle company that's come out with a new improved water bottle. And so I don't have an affinity for. They're all fine. Just get one and use it. Personally, I love glass. I love to drink my water out of glass.
Tastes different.
Tastes different. Yeah, it's a different aesthetic experience. Putting the water into a glass bottle, I enjoyed that more than putting it into anything else, metal or plastic. Glass has its downsides. You have to take care of it. You have to make sure it doesn't break. But if it breaks, it goes into the glass recycling, which becomes another glass bottle. So that's my preference. And to keep it really simple, if you buy a glass bottle of nice water, you get the bottle. Put a cool sticker on it and use that bottle. Refill it 100 times until it is no longer useful, and then recycle it. You don't need to spend $20, $30 on a fancy special water bottle. And so, the elephant in the corner here is single-use plastic, which is truly, this is not an arguable point, not being debated by anyone. Plastic pollution is a plague on our planet. It got out of control. We humans, probably the past 50 years, just lost sight of this runaway train called plastic. And now we've got a big mess that we need to fix. We're going to fix. And it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of creativity, some behavior change, some major cleanup effort. But that's where we are right now. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's a fact. We're raising awareness, but the change isn't happening from that awareness fast enough. The interests in the status quo are well-equipped, well-funded, and doing their best to keep us right where we are in this throwaway kind of cycle. The zero waste movement is growing, and in notable places and ways, but we have a ways to go before we kind of hit that peak. And then we're going to hit peak plastic in the coming decades, and then have a big cleanup and transition project. But every little thing each of us does to nudge that in the right direction is useful and fun. Back to Mike Merzenich point, it's kind of addictive to do the right thing, to make those little decisions, to feel good. Say, wow, I just got a drink and they brought me no straw because I asked for no straw, and the waiter said, wow, no straw, and they followed through. Those little actions, those little micro changes, habits are really can be fun and addictive, and then kind of go viral. So those are my thoughts. You asked about water bottles, and I went off on a
No,
kind of a
that's
wild.
perfect, and it segues with how can we help the water?
Yeah, I always say get in it, but I get asked a lot, what are your top three things we can do for the ocean, the environment? And I kick back on that one and say, what do you think? To when people ask that, the first answer. So if you're asking me what you should do, I would say, what is your first answer? What's something you're not doing that you could do that you think you should do? Do that. Do that thing. Because if I give you my top three, you may be entertained, but the chance that you adopt my recommendations is pretty low because they're mine. We don't like being told what to do. But if you come up with the idea and you dig deep, then there's a better chance. So I'm not punting on the answer.
No, this is personal buy-in. I like it, Jay.
Yeah. I'm reflecting a bit on all the lists that are telling us how to be green and eco. That are just, we've got lists of lists. The top 50 things you can do. It's like, whoa, now I'm a bit overwhelmed, but just give me one and you give it to me. You tell me what you're going to do. That said, I will reiterate, get in your water, find your water and spend more time in it. That's a half answer. I'm suggesting more water time, but I want you to tell me what that means for you. If it's a float or a tub or a pool or a creek, prioritize that. You will not go wrong if you prioritize your water time, and you will send fan mail to this conversation and say thank you for the reminder.
Woohoo!
I enjoyed the creek. Yeah.
And what would you tell parents for their kids in water?
Same. Safely, be safe. Teach your kids to love water. Give them the skills. I've met so many people who did not learn to swim as kids for a variety of reasons that we could go into on another show, who later in life realized how limiting that was for them. 3/4 of the planet was not entirely off limits, but somewhat. They didn't have the skill set and the confidence, and they may have had fear of water, which limited their life choices and their joy, and sometimes in very heartbreaking ways. Some of the most exciting conversations I've had this year with people in their 60s who learned to swim, and suddenly 3/4 of the planet opens to them. And I ask, what is your big goal? What is your goal, your wildest dream? And one woman, black woman from Carbondale, Illinois, who learned to swim at 65 after growing up in a place at a time when she wasn't allowed to swim, she said, water ski. I'm going to learn to water ski. Now that I know how to swim, I'm going to water ski. I was like, heck yeah, that's a big wahoo. And she's so imagine grandma learns to water ski because she learned to swim and now realizes she's a damn good swimmer. And natural. She's a natural swimmer. She's a natural athlete. And in the water, she's like, I'm strong. After a year of swimming, she wants to go water skiing and maybe stand up paddleboarding. Then those people become water warriors, water protectors, water advocates, water lovers, water blue voters. That's exciting. So parents, teach your kids to swim and teach them music, I would say. Music and water.
Perfect. As we wrap this up, I was going to ask real quickly about what brings you the greatest happiness or the woohoo factor. But instead, I want to ask you about your connection with the turtles.
Yes. Well, there's a turtle behind your head right there. It's a green sea turtle. I've spent a lot of time with green sea turtles. I'm I'm a marine biologist by training, and my doctorate is in sea turtles. Study their genetics, their migration, their eating habits, their growth rates, all the cool stuff they do. But I've been involved with a group of people around the world who are heroes, who have dedicated their lives to bringing sea turtles back from the brink of extinction. And while there's work to do, and there are populations of sea turtles that are still in dire straits, many populations of sea turtles have are recovering, and that's because of commitment, persistence, unstoppability. But at the base of it is love, just the deep love and respect for these animals that keeps my friends and colleagues going out every night, all night, night after night, on the beaches, on the waterways, doing the work, protecting them, moving the eggs, releasing the babies, marking the nests, guarding the females, studying them, monitoring. Really, it's incredible, and I've been very lucky to be a part of that movement, that community. That's leaving things, a little better, fixing some of the broken parts of our planet. And I've been really interested connecting the dots here for a second, connecting Blue Mind to the turtle work. And I've been promoting something I call wildlife conservation therapy,
Mm-hmm. Ooh, cool.
Where hopefully someday doctors will literally prescribe wildlife conservation therapy, whereby you go and spend 2 weeks
mm-hmm.
helping some of these heroes save turtles. And you're by the water, you're serving something bigger than yourself. There's physical activity. You can see the results. You feel good about yourself. It really is transformative to participate in those kinds of activities. I've seen it informally, but I'd like to connect the dots there. And sea turtles are medicine, not because you eat them or drink their blood, but because you spend time with them and watch them and help them and serve their interests. That is medicine.
How does
Literally.
it make you feel when you swim with one?
I get lost. I lose track of time. I lose track of needless to say, any worries, any to-do lists whatsoever, any screens, any anxieties, that goes away for the time being, at least. I encourage people when I'm in the water and the turtles are hanging out to mimic the turtle. Spend time with them and do exactly what they do. If there's a surge and they don't fight the surge, they ride it back and forth. So they effortlessly, with an economy of motion, maintain their location, chomping away on the algae on the rocks or whatever they're doing. So I encourage people just to get in sync with the turtle. And I say, do it for 5 minutes. And it inevitably turns into an hour because it's such a nice experience. And there are people I've known, including Michael J. Fox, lost track of time while doing that. And when he got out of the ocean, his wife said, he said to his wife, "I'm done." And she said, "Good, you've been gone for a couple hours." He said, "No, I'm done. I'm quitting TV." He made a major life decision while in the company of a turtle, and never looked back, never questioned it. It was the right decision, but it was made because he calmed his mind, got into a blue mind state, hung out with this animal, which gave him clarity, insight into what the next big phase of his life would be. And he moved into that confidently. And that's the gift. That's the medicine that these experiences, whether it's turtles or birds in a wetland or walking in a forest, that's the gift that we get. We get that break, that clarity, that insight, that creativity. And that's that. Yeah, I think that's what we've been talking about.
Woohoo!
Yes.
So where can people go to find out more and to find your book and all of your work?
I have a website, blog. It's my name, wallacejnichols.org. If you go there, you will find an overwhelming amount of information, I think, but links to wherever you need to go. If you're interested in supporting our work, if you're interested in the film, we just launched an online book club, which we do every year. People can drop into that at any point and just listen. I read the book on Facebook Live every evening, and anybody can just pop in and listen. You don't even need a book, so this is not even a book sales pitch. This is join us for the conversation. We bring in guests, readers, and it's a fun activity. We're making that film. You can get involved in that. We've got a campaign to support that. Watch it when it comes out. Keep your eyes open for that. But there are 1,000 ways that people get involved, and it's a very non-hierarchical approach. We're building a movement, so grab your piece, whatever that is. Keep us up to date on what you're doing if you want to be involved. Use the Blue Mind hashtag to follow the conversation on social media. And I'm wide open to new ideas from artists and creative folks and media people and fellow scientists and explorers, educators. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today, Jay? And thank you so much again. And we would be honored in the future to have you back, and cannot express enough how much we love what you're doing, how important it is what you're doing. And if people actually take action on this today, how much it soothes and calms and resets and recharges, and the superlatives, we can go on and on and on and on.
Yeah, last words, I'd say what I've seen is there's a growing gap between how people are living and how they could live. Everywhere I go, people are not saying, I've got plenty of water time. I've got plenty of blue mind. I don't hear that. I hear the absolute opposite. Everything is moving us, pushing us in the red mind direction. So break out of that and take somebody with you and get in the water and make it a new habit, a new routine. Make it your new addiction. Let's just call it that. That sounds like a band name, new addiction. But if you do that,
should we trademark that for you?
Newaddiction.com. And I'll last thing. We keep saying last thing, but this little guy. These are little marbles. If you need some, I give these away just as little reminders of blue mind, gratitude, and
so what is the Blue Marble Project?
I started giving blue marbles away about a decade ago at a big lecture I gave at the New England Aquarium, and I wanted it to be more gratitude rather than fear and guilt based, like a lot of stuff I'd been seeing was. And it worked. People responded to these little orbs in a very cool way. And they simply represent our water planet in the blue mind conversation. And we give them away as a small symbol of gratitude. And when you get one, you're meant to carry it until you give it away. And then you embellish the story in your way and you pass it on. So we've shared over 1 million of them, and they've gotten to many millions of people around the world, explorers and musicians and big idea people and kids, and just it's been so amazing. So it's just become kind of this, I'd say, universal symbol for blue mind. And they're recycled glass, speaking of glass, and they represent our little water planet. So if you get one, now you know a little more about what it meant. And if you need them, just get in touch. You can get yourself a bag. You will become addicted to giving out blue marbles to people, because the response is unanimously favorable. It's a spontaneous moment of interaction and gratitude and joy that people really respond positively to. Plus, they're beautiful. Like, they're just nice,
Cool.
little glass. They look cool to look through. They're beautiful color. And so it's simple. It's I call it socio-physical media. You need the physical connection. You can't give a virtual blue marble. You have to. Although I'm going to try to give you a virtual blue marble right now. Here you go.
Thank you. I take that right there. And for those, so for those who don't want virtual but the real thing, also wallacejnichols.org. Is that correct?
Yeah, you'll find them there. Bluemarbles.org will get you directly to the right page. But all of this stuff, if you do a Google search with a few words related to this conversation, you'll stumble upon our stuff one way or another, and be happy to send folks a bag of blue marbles if you cover the basic cost and have fun with them. Yeah.
I imagine you'll be shipping out a lot more blue marbles after today.
Yes, excellent. Super fun.
Thank you so much, Jay. This has been phenomenal. This has been a treat. I wish you much water.
Thank you.
I wish you water.
Yeah.
I've never done that before, but it seems appropriate.
It's very appropriate. Yeah. Likewise, I wish you much water. Yeah.
Thank you. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get blue mind, and get in sync with your inner turtle today, and shine bright. Woohoo!
Excellent. Love it.
Thank you so much, Jay.
My pleasure. It's really fun to talk to you.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!